Against No-Kill Shelters. Animals in Society 67. Group 4 consists of Cadence, Gabriella, Isaac, Aura, and Kimberly. Our presentation will include history and background, ethical aspects, cultural importance, sociological importance, current events, and opinions.
Hello, my name is Aura Calleros Cuadros, and I will be talking about the history and background of no-kill shelters. Talk about the timeline of the relationship between humans and animals. First comes the discovery of domestication. Animals had originally been used for their physical resources, like meat, hide, milk, and more. But around 13 to 17,000 years ago, humans found out that the animals around them could be tamed and used for practical purposes. The year of domestication may vary depending on the animal, but the earliest recorded domesticated animal is dogs. They were used primarily for farm work, like herding. Likewise, cats were used for their hunting instincts, for pest control. Other animals were also utilized for their unique abilities. Horses, for example, were powerful and could help in labor, war, and transport. Another example is birds. Since they can fly, they were trained to hold and send paper messages back and forth. The relationship between animals and humans became more personal as the years went by, so much so that they began to be let into family homes and live among each other. However, tamed animals led to some issues less common in the wild. Overpopulation was growing, and in the late 19th century, humans started building shelters to keep homeless animals. The intention was to give them a temporary home from which people could adopt. Space began to be more scarce, so shelter animals had to be killed sometimes. This was usually for animals that had a lower chance of surviving. More awareness was being spread, and in the 1930s there was more efforts to spay and neuter pets. However, this wasn't enough. Populations kept growing, but so did the love between humans and animals. This love led to a discussion about whether or not it was right to kill shelter animals. They were being put down using what is called euthanasia, which was considered inhumane. The no-kill movement was established in the 1990s to fight against it. The issue continues to this day. So what is this aforementioned euthanasia? It is the method shelters use to put animals down. It sounds harsh, but it is not violent. Euthanasia comes in the form of a medical injection, providing a painless death without the knowledge of the animal. It is an option provided when the suffering of a living being is too great a burden, and relieves them of the stress to ease them into a peaceful state of permanent rest. Euthanasia, though controversial, is even used on humans. In other words, euthanasia is what clears up space for animals who may need the shelter more. All shelters have limited space, but utilize it differently depending on whether they are no-kill or not. Traditional shelters are the core concept of what a shelter was made to be. They are open access, which means they accept all animals that are brought to them. They use euthanasia on unwell animals with low chances of rehabilitation or survival, so they can open up more space for healthy animals. No-kill shelters are a variation established by the 1990s movement. They are limited access, meaning they are selective in which animals they accept. They do not make space for all animals because of their aversion to euthanasia. Once a shelter has been crowded, they can no longer take in animals. There is no such thing as a true no-kill shelter. Overpopulation is too much of a concern that even no-kill shelters have to kill 10% of their animals each year. It is just that, in this case, euthanasia is the last resort. Before we move on, let's clarify some important dates of the no-kill shelter movement. In the 1930s, animal overpopulation was a big issue. There were increased efforts to spay and neuter. In the 1990s, the movement started to make all shelters no-kill shelters. This led to things like the creation of the No-Kill Directory in 1994. and San Francisco later became the first no-kill county. In the 2000s to the present today, the no-kill movement continues to spread across the country.
My name is Gabriella Lucas, and I will be talking about the ethical aspects of the opposing side to no-kill shelters.
So, what comes with no-kill shelters is the animal welfare. That should be the first priority in any shelter for animals. So, with no-kill shelters, their mental health is affected, physical health, and there's also a lack of shelter resources. So, mental health-wise, these animals are in need of enrichment, whether it's human interaction with other animals, whatever it may be. Their mental health does deteriorate. That creates stress not only on their mental state but their body as well. Being in a confined space by themselves or even with an excessive amount of animals puts a strain on an animal, and research shows that the stress from these no-kill shelters leads to anxiety, depression, and even behavioral disorders after they're rescued or adopted, if they are. So, potentially, if they are rescued and adopted, these animals may seem aggressive because of their past and their history in the shelters. Um, Depending on how they were treated, that's a big part that plays into that. But when these animals are surrounded by other animals who are in confined spaces, causing a muck when it comes to barking, crying, all of the above, these animals are going to be put through a really stressful situation in hopes that they're going to get adopted or rescued anytime soon. So that definitely does put a strain on their mental health. Physical health wise, some of these animals may not want to eat. They might not want to sleep. When it comes down to rescuing an animal and an animal being in a space like this, that's not their norm, what they're used to. That can take a toll on their body, and it changes how they are in and out of the kennel or in and out of the shelter, wherever they may be. It definitely makes an impact on these animals' bodies, and the lack of shelter resources could vary in a huge amount of stuff or ideas, whether it's food, whether it's water, whether it's staff members. When there is a lack of these things, these animals aren't getting the attention and enrichment that they need, and that definitely causes a strain on them as well. I've also read some research how some no-kill shelters purposely, they don't necessarily do it for the benefits and for the profits, but when they do save all these animals at once, and there is an excessive amount of animals there, they tend to get more benefits from people, whether it's donations or promotions or ads for places, whatever it may be, to put themselves out there and get that street cred for their business, um, and get the attention that they want for their animals to be saved and rescued and adopted. That's what they do by. That's what happens with some of them, but when they rescue all these animals at once. But in turn, that's causing stress and a strain for the animals, not really putting their welfare and well-being first. So, continuing on with the ethics idea, overcrowding is a huge issue in some of these shelters. That can cause, not every animal to get the attention they need. The lack of attention and enrichment, like I mentioned before, the health hazards that come with it are insane, that I've seen from my personal experience and from research that I've looked into online. There's also a territorial aspect to it, especially with dogs. Male or female, it doesn't really matter. I've seen it with both. Um, and like this says, most of the animals adopted from no-kill shelters don't behave well due to their circumstances. That's supposed to say most. They don't behave well due to the circumstances of being enclosed with any other animals. A lot of these animals do go home, and if there are other animals in the home, they might not behave as well. That's part of that territorial aspect as well. Um, with the first bullet point of not every animal getting the attention they need, like I mentioned before, with the lack of staff members, there are a lot of shelters that are constantly pushing for new staff members or people to be, new employees, people to help these animals. And not every person, that's not a person's cup of tea to deal with these animals and to help and to take care of them on a regular basis instead of just playing with them or, just the fun stuff that comes with an animal. Health hazards wise, I've seen it personally where I've been into multiple shelters, animal shelters, not necessarily no-kill ones, but there's an excessive amount of animal feces, or the water's dirty, or they're not getting fed enough, or the water or the food's all over the floor, the same place that they use a bathroom. Not every animal gets looked into 100% in these shelters, because there are so many of them. You can't monitor all of them at once. So with the regular supervision that is needed, that they might not necessarily get, that could also be a problem as well. And it's not healthy for the animal as well to be enclosed like that by themselves without any other animals or without any attention. And then the territorial aspect, being in a confined space with other animals like that could cause some serious issues. That can include dog fights, cat fights, whatever you name, like whatever kind of animal we're thinking of, that could cause a real issue. And I also want to include the fact, I didn't include it in the last slide, but the picture of the dog I had included in the last slide, her name is Samantha. And she is an example of one of those dogs that has anxiety and depression and, went to a shelter after being abused and left on the streets. And she's doing a lot better. She's one of the animals I work with where I volunteer at. She's doing a lot better, but she's definitely one of those animals that has social anxiety when it comes to walking or being given a treat. She's kind of hesitant, and she doesn't really interact as well as the other dogs who might have had, nurturing at home or the interaction with humans like they should have. But she definitely doesn't have that, and so does this dog. This dog's name is Blue. He's another pit bull at the rescue where I work at, and he also kind of, gives off that behavior. Walking wise, he did not want to walk. He is a very sweet dog, but you can tell that he's had a past with abuse, and so have other animals there that you can see don't have as much attention or are not given as much attention as the other animals there, who are friendly and playful and they get along with people and other animals. He's not one of those dogs that gets along with other dogs, or I'm not saying he doesn't get along with people, but he definitely doesn't have the behavior that a dog who's been around people their whole life would. And I think this is also an example of those behavioral issues and their problems that they have from being enclosed or forced to be with other dogs that they might share their territory with, or try to compete for that territory, as is.
Hello, this is Isaac, and I will be talking about the cultural importance of the against kill shelters. More specifically, why they're important and why at times it is best for animals to be put down in certain cases. So why is this culturally important to society? These types of shelters, they focus on animal suffering. So they prioritize preventing prolonged suffering, suggesting euthanasia as a humane option for severely ill or injured animals, even if not immediately dying. So this means, if an animal is severely sick, and the best thing to do is to put down the animal than to have the animal suffering. These types of shelters offer that option instead of keeping them living their life like that. The same thing for limited space and resources. So at times, obviously, with so many animals with no homes, there's no space and to keep all these animals, and that could put stress onto the animals, and could lead to lower quality of life in these overcrowded shelters, as well as scarcity of resources. Obviously, if there's too much mouths to feed, well, then there's not going to be enough resources to be going around for every single animal that's in the confined spaces.
Number 4, Sociological Importance by Cadence. Restrictions. No-kill shelters usually have a more closed-arm policy to the public compared to kill shelters. Many no-kill shelters will also not take in surrenders. These are both due to a lack of space. Social strains due to no-kill shelters. They lead to overcrowding of animals and longer stays, emotional and physical burnout of staff and volunteers, and difficulty in managing the animals medically. And lastly, negative viewpoints of kill shelters. They create emotional or scared responses due to animals being killed, receive a large amount of backlash on social media, people's morals don't align with the actions of kill shelters, reducing the number of volunteers, and large misconceptions that you either adopt a dog or it will be euthanized.
Number 5, current events. Resource constraints. Struggles to have the necessary resources. Staff being in a position for shelters to offer proper medical treatment and support may be limited by their lack of capacity to find and keep qualified employees. Funding. Shelters usually depend on fundings and contributions, which might not be enough to pay for staff. Space. Shelters may find it challenging to manage an increase of more animals due to their limited facilities. Adoption challenges. Behavioral issues. Due to some dogs having behavioral issues cause them to stay longer in the shelters, which results them being put down. Animal euthanasia. Many believe that it's more environmentally friendly to focus on encouraging adoption and reducing animal overpopulation through responsible pet ownership, spaying and neutering, and other measures rather than killing animals because of resource or space constraints.
In my opinion, euthanasia should be used sparingly. Animals deserve a second chance, but there are some situations in which it would be more humane to end their lives peacefully with euthanasia. There are times when their pain greatly outweighs the experience of living. The no-kill movement has sparked a lot of ethical and moral debates. The people in support of no-kill shelters almost taking this extreme stance, a black and white perspective of life, where they think that all life must be preserved, even if it is painful.
So, my opinion on the against side of no kill shelters, it's kind of in between, it's kind of in the middle. My opinions on the opposition of no kill shelters are supporting both the evidence of bystanders and the research that I've done and the shelters. I think there are good reasons to be against the confinement of multiple animals, an excessive amount of animals. But I also understand that the way the shelters want to save as many unfortunate animals as they can is important. I just wish that in these no kill shelters they would put the animals' well being first and they would do a better job of monitoring all of them and helping all of them, whether it's the health wise, food wise, attention wise. I wish there was definitely more of that in the no kill shelters.
In my opinion, I think it is only humane to use euthanasia in cases where it is best for the well-being of the animal to be put down. Um, like if it's very severe, and the animal is better off being put down in a peaceful manner, then that's where I think it's ethically okay. I think there are other practices to reduce the number of animals rather than using euthanasia. So if using that to reduce the number of animals, I don't think that should be a way to go. I think spaying and neutering and offering up for adoption with vaccines and having vaccines at a lower cost might get people to actually go and adopt the animals if that's what the shelters think is the best way to reduce. And I offer that as different path that they could take.
I personally think that kill shelters offer a more well-rounded environment for animals, but that only qualifies if the individuals running the shelter only view euthanasia as a way to end an animal's suffering. I think using euthanasia because there are too many animals is an abuse of the medical practice.
Opinion. I believe that euthanasia, when approached ethically and compassionately, can be necessary option for animal welfare because there are many cases where animals suffer from severe medical conditions or behavioral issue making them unadoptable, and having them in the shelters can lead to unnecessary pain and distress.
This slide includes references from Aura, Gabriella, and Isaac. This slide includes references from Cadence and Kimberly. Thank you for listening to our presentation.